The auditorium lights burned like tiny suns above the polished stage, casting a glow on the glossy floor where dreams either bloomed or broke. The crowd of students murmured, snickering softly, waiting for the next performer. A talent show, innocent on paper, was often a battlefield for pride and popularity. And tonight, standing behind the velvet curtain, a nervous girl named Emma Cole clutched a second-hand guitar that looked far too old to belong on that shining stage. Her hands trembled, but not from fear alone. It was the weight of every insult, every mocking whisper she'd heard since the day everyone learned who her father was. The janitor. If you believe that kindness still matters more than status, that second chances can change lives, please take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe. It helps spread stories that remind the world what really counts. Emma's father, Mark Cole, had worked at Oak Ridge High for nearly 15 years. Every morning, he swept the halls before dawn, mopped up the cafeteria spills, and fixed squeaky doors no one else cared about. He never complained, never asked for more. But teenagers notice everything, and judge quickly. To them, he wasn't Mark. He was Mr. Mop. The man who wore faded overalls and carried a cart that squeaked louder than the students' laughter. And by extension, Emma, bright-eyed, quiet, and always carrying her guitar, became the janitor's daughter. It started small. Snide comments, fake smiles. Someone once left a note on her locker that said, "Do you clean floors, too?" Another time, during lunch, someone whispered just loud enough for her to hear, "Maybe she'll bring her dad's broom to prom." She learned to swallow the pain, to focus on the one thing that never judged her, music. Every evening, while her father returned home with tired hands and aching shoulders, she'd sit by the small window in their tiny apartment and strum her guitar. The instrument was old, missing a string, and the varnish had peeled away, but it carried her heart like nothing else could. She wrote songs no one ever heard, songs about quiet strength, about her father's tired smile, about how dignity doesn't wear designer clothes. She dreamed of performing one day, of letting the world hear her voice, but each time she thought of standing on stage, she imagined the laughter first. Then came the announcement, Oak Ridge High Annual Talent Show. A chance for students to showcase their gifts, to compete for a small scholarship and a moment of spotlight. Emma's friends, well, the few who were kind to her, urged her to sign up. She hesitated for weeks, battling fear and insecurity. What if they laughed? What if she failed? But one night, as she watched her father fall asleep at the kitchen table after another long shift, she saw the grease on his hands, the dirt under his nails, and the exhaustion in his eyes, and something changed. She whispered softly, "I'll make you proud, Dad." The next morning, she wrote her name on the sign-up sheet. The days leading up to the show were filled with whispers. Some students were genuinely curious, others cruelly amused. "The janitor's kid is performing," someone said. "What's she going to do, sing about mops?" Another laughed, "Maybe she'll clean the stage after she's done." Emma pretended not to hear, but their laughter echoed in her chest. She practiced harder. Every night she played until her fingers hurt, sometimes bleeding slightly on the old strings. Her father noticed once and said gently, "You don't have to prove anything to anyone, sweetheart." But she just smiled and said, "I'm not proving anything, Dad. I'm sharing something." Finally, the night arrived. The auditorium buzzed with excitement, bright lights, colorful banners, and a crowd of teenagers filming everything for social media. The popular kids performed first, dance routines, comedy skits, even a flashy magic act. Laughter, applause, cheers. Then, when Emma's name was called, the crowd grew quieter, but not out of respect. It was that uneasy silence before mockery. She walked onto the stage in her plain white dress and worn-out shoes, her guitar slung across her shoulder. She paused, glanced at the audience, and caught sight of her father standing in the back near the exit doors, still wearing his janitor's uniform, cap in hand, eyes full of pride. That was all she needed. Someone in the front row snickered. "What's this? The cleaning service special? Another voice chimed in, hope she brought her mop. The laughter rippled like a cruel wave. Emma felt her throat tighten. For a moment, she almost froze. But then she took a deep breath and plucked the first string. The sound that filled the auditorium wasn't ordinary. It was raw, fragile, yet hauntingly beautiful. The first few notes shimmered through the silence, and even the laughter began to fade. Then she began to sing. Her voice, soft, soulful, and trembling with emotion, poured through every corner of the hall. She sang of a man who worked in the shadows so others could shine in the light. Of a father who gave everything, though the world never said thank you. Of dreams built quietly while the world looked away. Every chord, every word came from somewhere deep, a place of love, pain, and defiance. For the first time, no one dared to interrupt. The crowd sat still, eyes locked on her. Even the teachers leaned forward, mesmerized. Some students who once mocked her now felt something they couldn't name, shame, maybe, or admiration. When she reached the final verse, her voice cracked slightly, but it only made the moment more powerful. You may not see the stars I chase, but I see them in your tired face. For every floor you've cleaned so bright, you've built my wings to take this flight. The last note lingered in the air long after her fingers stopped moving. Then, silence. Pure, heavy silence. And suddenly, the crowd erupted. It wasn't polite applause, it was thunder. Cheers, whistles, even tears. The same students who once laughed were now standing, clapping, some shouting her name. Her father stood frozen for a moment, then slowly wiped his eyes. He'd spent his life unnoticed, invisible among the hallways he cleaned, but tonight, because of his daughter, everyone saw him. Emma smiled through tears as the principal came up and shook her hand, whispering, that was extraordinary. After the show, reporters from the school newspaper surrounded her. Students came up to apologize, to praise her. Emma, we didn't know you could sing like that, one said. That was, wow. She thanked them kindly, though she didn't need their approval anymore. The next morning, the video of her performance went viral online. The janitor's daughter who silenced the crowd, the caption read. Thousands of views, thousands of comments. People from across the world were moved. Some said it reminded them of their parents, others of their own struggles. But the best moment came a week later when the school announced the scholarship winners. Emma stood nervously on the stage again, this time beside her proud father. The principal smiled and said, for touching every heart in this school and reminding us that talent, humility, and courage can come from anywhere, this year's scholarship goes to Emma Cole. Tears streamed down her father's face. The crowd stood again, cheering. Emma took the certificate and turned toward her dad, whispering, we did it. Life changed slowly after that. People looked at her father differently, not as the janitor, but as a man whose hard work raised a girl with extraordinary spirit. Students started greeting him with smiles instead of silence. Emma began writing more songs, not to prove herself, but to inspire others who felt unseen. She played at charity events, visited schools, and told kids that every background has beauty, that no job makes you lesser, and that kindness is the most powerful instrument of all. And through it all, her father remained her biggest fan, sitting quietly in the crowd, clapping the loudest. But deep down, Emma knew something else. What truly silenced that crowd wasn't just her music. It was truth. The truth that dignity doesn't wear wealth. That love doesn't need luxury. And that sometimes, the quietest hearts carry the loudest songs. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, and subscribe to help more stories like this reach others who need a reminder that compassion can change everything. Before you go, comment below, what would you have done if you were in Emma's place? Years later, Emma would stand on a bigger stage, one with bright cameras and a sea of faces. She'd perform on national television, holding the same old guitar her father once helped her fix. When the host asked her what inspired her to start singing, she smiled and said softly, "A man with a mop and the biggest heart I've ever known." The audience erupted once again, but this time, the applause wasn't just for the music, it was for the story that began in a school hallway, where a janitor's daughter dared to dream. Because when life laughs at you, sometimes all you have to do, is play your truth loud enough for the world to listen.